so much machismo around these really masculine kids that were, hooking up at a young age.
Oh my God, the pressure.
And I felt all this pressure, and
Yeah.
I felt like I couldn't be tied down, and I had to conduct myself in the way of getting with multiple people, of getting with multiple women, because I identify as a straight male.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that's how I felt like I had to conduct myself by getting with so many people. And I just, from a young age, the idea of commitment was automatically out the window.
Of course.
But that's just how I grew up socially, and it's just so interesting. So I just wonder how that's represented in Australia, because it's definitely
I think
it's crazy here.
The college experience is what defines the hookup culture in America. So, like, you go away to college at 17, 18, and you have time to experiment with yourself, to, have as much random sex as you want to, basically. And in Australia, you don't go away to college. You stay home for uni. You commute. Except for university. So there's not an opportunity to experiment in the same way and to kind of have the freedom. I think it's kind of wonderful, like the sexual liberation that exists in America, but can also be limiting for exploring deep relationships with people, and especially deep sexual and romantic relationships with people.
Absolutely, and there's just, I've experienced myself to a degree. I think your heart has to be open to it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to definitely be ready for it as a person.
Yeah,
There's
you've got to be in a place where you can really, like, you give yourself to somebody.
Absolutely, and there's a level of maturity, and there's just such an intricate world that you can build with a person, and it's beautiful, and it's that world. It is your world with that person. It's individual to you and them. But there's something scary about it, because it's vulnerable, and literally literally. It's like, no, it's what you mean is figuratively when you speak in that tense anyway. But the only thing that you really need in said relationship for it to really work is trust.
And communication.
It's not even really honesty, although honesty is extremely important. It's not anything else. And I've had someone that I've known for a long time. I won't, for confidentiality, I won't say any names. So I've had someone that I've known for basically my entire life say this to me. That's really the foundation, is just trust. If you don't trust someone, it's not going to work. There needs to be this basis level of trust, and it's like a trust fall. You need to be able to give yourself to someone to some degree. So it's really interesting. I don't,
But not all of yourself. I think
it's important absolutely.
to keep the core of who you are, be able to share a little bit, and be able to kind of have that person carry your weight with you, and like continue on your journey together. It has to be like a decision.
Because I think it can too easily get like codependent, and it becomes,
oh my God, it becomes toxic.
Yeah, it becomes very.
But I think people especially shy away from commitment because of social media, and because of how we're representing ourselves online, and kind of the persona that we exist as online and how we are in real life. There's such a distance between those two things.
That's a whole nother episode that we could get into.
Absolutely, but I think it makes romantic relationships difficult.
Absolutely,
as well,
it's very
your
very
mind
nuanced.
is in two different places.
Absolutely, and it's just, it becomes a surrogate of you. It becomes this like silhouette that you need to fill with.
Uphold, yeah.
With this image, this false image. I absolutely agree. So
that's a tangent.
How is the food? How is the food
in Australia?
In Australia.
Ooh, I wouldn't.
In comparison, I just kind of want to. I didn't want to juxtapose too much.
Yeah,
but how is the food in Australia compared to?
I would say there
America?
Isn't a specific Australian cuisine other than like fairy bread and Vegemite on toast, sausage rolls, meat pies, etc. But I would say that Australians are more kind of careful with their eating. And when I came to America, I was like, what? Like, these portion sizes are humongous. The plates are even bigger. And I think that is represented in the culture as well, and how people live and lifestyle. And, like, of course, there's still a problem with obesity in Australia, but I think it's downplayed because people live a kind of more active and healthy lifestyle. Especially, I think they have just a different relationship to food because produce is grown there. Produce is because it's an island, right? It's isolated. You can't have, you can't really export too much and import too much.
Interesting, yeah.
So it's
Absolutely.
all kind of, it's pretty local. It's pretty I don't know, it's homegrown. That's what Australia is.
Yeah, I mean, if I could source all of my food from a local farm, that'd be great. But it'd be excellent.
You can't quite
but
do that in New York, can you?
It's hard to find the time or have the intimacy or the money to be able to do that, because it does undoubtedly cost more money to get farm grown goods and to get to get meat that where the cattle or the meat that you're eating was able to be free grazing, and that's very important, and was able to eat grass. And one of a crazy movie, Food Inc., where they're fed corn to fatten up. That's not the diet of a cow. Certain things like that. So I find that really interesting. And
I think just because of the scale of the country, like there needs to be more mass-produced, like, unhealthy food in America. And in Australia, there's only 23 million people. 23 million in the same land mass, basically, of America, and
it's much more sparsely populated.
Yeah,
for sure.
So it's just it's easier to get local produce, and I think it's cheaper. I think it's cheaper to live a healthy lifestyle. And in America, it's much less attainable.
Yep. So kind of a couple last things that I want to touch on, and I want to intersect them a little bit, is they're very deep, but something that I've noticed a lot in America that I see too often is race isolation. So you can go to a certain part of America and you only see homogeneity in race, or I only see white people, and I'm not going to call out certain regions of the United States for being in that, in that corner.
People can grow up only seeing their own.
Does that manifest in Australia, or is it a pretty diverse spread of people? Is it, how does that manifest itself? Is it more of like a New York City type of,
I wouldn't say New York City
polyglot, or
in the same way, but I think there's a huge Asian population in Australia because Asian countries are just so close. So a lot of people immigrate to Australia and call it their home, and it's really, really multicultural. I think more than people even know or expect, and I think it's embraced in a way that I think it's not embraced in America. I think because of the deep political and racial divides that just don't exist in Australia because it's quite a new country. People are still forming their homes and their roots, and it's okay to be from somewhere else, and it's okay to just be starting out and being different, and maybe not homogenous, and maybe not of the same race, and yeah, I don't know.
I think also it's just people are really afraid to get out of their comfort zone in America.
Oh yeah.
Really afraid. Like there's way too many people that haven't even, they go maybe till they're even 21 years old and they haven't even left their state. They haven't even left their state. It's like, the state is not, whatever state you're in, even if it's Texas, which is its own little country, it's not that big.
It's not the world.
You can leave. It's not the world. You need to get out of your comfort zone. It's a big thing. And also kind of transitioning, something that I think is very flat in America and definitely needs revamping. And I'm saying this to anyone that's listening. If you can help in any way in your own circle, whether it's your own slang, whether it's your own culture, your own type of slang that you've made with your friends. I think American slang is very dead. It's overused. It's derogatory a lot of the time. It's crap. It needs revamping. And I think so much foreign slang I find to be so interesting, especially that of Australia. And, a lot of the accents come from a British lineage. And I just want to hear, a couple things, with that, do you miss sort of the language and the camaraderie and like, do you miss being in Australia?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever I go back, I'm like, like I can talk to people finally.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, because often Americans like they don't understand, like they pretend like they don't understand what I'm saying, which I think is a lie, because we're speaking the same language, but they're like what are you saying?
Do you think it's because of your accent?
That's what they say. They're like I don't understand you. I'm like what am I, like, is there really that big of a distance there? You know, like obviously not, because we're speaking the same language. I think it's a choice from them to choose not to understand me, to stay in their bubble. But yeah, the language is so different. I go back and it's natural, it flows. Obviously, that's where I grew up. And there are small things that like Australians will understand that Americans really do not, which is kind of fun to have that difference. But it's also nice to have the closeness and the familiarity of language and
absolutely
culture.
100%. And give me 3 of your favorite slang words. I'd love to hear them.
Okay.
Phrases.
Okay. Fair dinkum.
Okay.
Bloody oath. And togs.
Togs. All right.
Or budgie smugglers.
Budgie smugglers.
Yes.
All right.
Do you think you know what that means, budgie smugglers?
Break it down for me a little bit.
I don't think I can on the air. It's a bit crude.
It's a bit crude.
It's a bit crude. Let's just say that togs and budgie smugglers are both swimmers. Budgie smugglers are worn by men.
Okay.
Speedos, basically.
Speedos. Okay.
Yeah. So if you can consider that, podcast listeners.
We got to consider that.
Yeah.
Everyone listening. That's a rough translation. So, with that, thank you for explaining all of that.
Oh, of course.
And
Thank
kind
you
of
for
just
having me.
giving your perspective. Absolutely. I'm so glad you were able to be my first guest
awesome.
and just
cheers.
Illustrate your perspective. Absolutely. Cheers. And we are now, thank you for listening so far, whoever's been listening, and we are now in the wonderful part of the episode where I make a live beat for you guys. So I'm not going to have as much fooling around with the soundscape as I did on the pilot episode of my podcasting. So this time I am going to scroll through a couple of the drum sets and just kind of give you the names of them. So, for example, this drum set is called Electro. These are all preset sounds onto the Akai XR20 machine. So, kind of scrolling through it. One of them is Fat Laces. They're all in capital letters. Yeah, it's very very intense. It wants to be in your face. Fat Laces, Freestyle, Get Off, Get Right, Glitch, Goodies, Graffiti, Grim. So, Grim seems kind of intense. And we want to stay in the same vein as Power, which was the leading theme of this podcast. Thanks to the handy dandy angel cards. Wonderful illusory angel cards. So I'm going to now make a beat for you guys. The tempo I'm going to set at 90 BPM. And let's see where we can take it. I'm going to play some sounds for you guys and just get a feel of what this sounds like. Let me turn up the volume here. Some one-shot sounds. Not bad. Let's see what we got. The metronome going. Bring it down to 85, actually. Oh, messed that up. Let's give it one more try. Good old fair college try. Here we go. Oh. So you can actually change the pattern length on the Akai as well. So here we go. I'm just going to add to this slowly.